All right, people. Black Eyes TV in the house once again. Here we are, bringing you more of that good information, good dialogue, good conversation. I know the people are going to slowly come in as we begin. We're joined once again by our elder, Brother Kaba. We're continuing our conversation from the last time he was on. But today is today's title of the show is the history of ancient. Oh my God, sorry. Can you still hear me? Sorry, just stopped there for a second. I think it's back. Yeah. Okay, we're back. Yeah, the history of ancient West Africa. Sorry about that, people. Yeah, so again, you know our brother. I'm gonna let him again introduce himself and begin. And throughout, we'll be asking questions. There'll be a dialogue. I encourage everybody in the chat room, if you have questions, to feel free to ask, pose them, and I'll try and get them in during the show. Our brother, talk to the people. How are you doing?
My brother, I appreciate you inviting us on. I am doing excellent. Everything is all right on this side of the world here in Bronx, New York, brother man. And I extend my greetings to my family in UK and to everyone who's watching and listening to this program. And I'm just very happy to be able to do this. And I appreciate what you're doing, my brother, to make this happen with Black Eyes TV.
That's all. Yeah. As I was saying, this started off from our first show, where it was entitled "From the Seen to the Unseen Journey of Our Ancestors," where we're covering history, metaphysics, principles of thought that our African ancestors lived by, used in their travels and their journeys. Today, as I said, it's the history of ancient West Africa. So again, I'll let you kick off where you want to start, and then we'll work into the conversation from there.
Well, the original, and, as you and I spoke earlier, my brother, a few weeks ago when we were planning this concept, I explained to you that there are so many different topics that we as a people have to understand and to study. And as an educator in the social sciences is where my area is. But because I've been an early childhood teacher, I've had to teach all grades. But we have to understand in social studies what's happening. And the unfortunate thing with Western civilization, Western education, the peoples that we call Eurasians are new to the planet. And whether they realize it or not, whether we realize it or not, they happen to be an episode in a much longer story of a holistic history. And I've come up with concepts where I'm trying to explain to children and to our community my experiences and my studies, that we have to understand the difference between episodic history and holistic history. And episodic history is a history that you learn in episodes. For instance, in tonight's class, I know we talk about the three great nations of West Africa. We talk about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. First of all, the kingdom wasn't Ghana. The kingdom was Ouagadougou. Ghana was the name of the king. So there was really we call it Ghana, but when it was existing, they did not call it Ghana. They call it Ouagadougou, W-A-G-A-D-U. So that even from that perspective, we're not really capturing the essence. Ghana was the name of the king, like Mansa was the name of the king in the Malinki Empire, and Askia was the name of the king in the Songhai Empire. But we study this West African civilization. But where did it come from? The way in which it's presented, they just hit us with Ghana, Mali, Songhai. But where did this kingdom come from? How was this kingdom able to develop what it developed so quickly? Or did it exist before this time? Episodic history only allows us to see Ghana, Mali, Songhai. But holistic history allows us to trace this history through a process of becoming, so that we're not surprised in 300 BC when we see this phenomenal kingdom that we call Wagadu. And so before we even talk about Wagadu, Mali, and Songhai, we have to talk about what existed before that, and that's holistic history. But see, as African people, we've always been around. We have a holistic history. In our DNA, in our memory strand, you spoke of metaphysics. In our DNA strand, in our DNA, in our imprint as an African people, make no difference if you're there in UK, or if you're in Jamaica, or you're in Nigeria, or you're in the Bronx. There is a DNA, brother, that connects you and I together. There's a strand that connects us. And probably from a metaphysical perspective, that connection is what brought you and I together right now.
That's right.
That connection is probably what brings your listeners and your viewers to your Black Eyes TV. There's a connection. But when you're living in the Western civilization, they don't allow you to understand this connection. So 2 weeks ago, when we did our first class together, we spoke about the origins of life in Africa. Because in no way you're going to understand West Africa if you don't understand where these people came from.
That's it.
You see, so what I attempt to do is to develop series. That's why we spoke about a 4-part or a 5-part series every other Tuesday. Because there's no way I could ever speak to us and make sense from a neuron perspective, from the brain, if we don't do it holistically. Episodic history doesn't work in the African mind because whole is made up of episodes, but the episode does not reflect the whole. So until we get to that point, we'll always have challenges. And so this evening's class is going to take us from last week, and we're going to look at something that's very important. And this is something that I always have to say very carefully. The Papyrus of Turin, Italy. It's located in Turin, Italy. There's a papyrus. Because it's in Turin, they call it the Papyrus of Turin. We also have information that comes to us from an African Greek by the name of Manetho. And Manetho was the individual that categorized the dynastic periods of ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. That's where we get that there were 30 dynasties. There was an old kingdom, and then an intermediate period, and then there was a middle kingdom, and then there was a second intermediate period, and then there was the new kingdom. That's what Manetho did. But there's no evidence of that. It really doesn't exist. We've only chosen to accept Manetho's explanation. But in accepting Manetho's explanation, we also accept the Greek explanation, because it was written during the time of the Greeks. We don't know how many dynasties there were, really. We don't even know if they developed them in dynasties. We don't even know the word they used for dynasty. Yet we talk about it like it's fact. We didn't call them Pharaoh. We call them Neset Biti. And the plural, when you say pharaohs in the plural, you add a U in Meduneter. So it would be Neset Bitiyu, which means pharaohs, the plural. And so there's so much that we have to connect back to help us understand how to make sense of this. And what I say to our people is that Egypt doesn't exist. Egypt is a word that was created from what the Greeks called this land, which they called Aegyptos. But Aegyptos came from an African word that Africans named what we today call Memphis. They didn't call it that. They didn't have a name for Kemet. Kemet was black land, but it was a settlement. It was a place where Cushites went. They called this area that we today call Memphis, they called it Hiku Patah. Hikupatah. Hiku means spirit or essence. Patah is the hill, the primordial hill that comes up out the water. So they called this land Hiku Patah. But why did they call it that? Because Mene, the Neset Biti that established this part of the world, dumped up land, rediverted the waters of Hapi or the Nile in order to dump up land to create this theocratic capital, which was done for astronomical and mathematical and geographical reasons, which I would have to do a whole class on that alone. But the concept is that he called it Hikupatah, the essence of the hill, because he dumped up land to create Memphis. When the Greeks came in, they came to the sacred capital and they found out that this was called Hikupatah, so they couldn't pronounce Hikupatah, so they called it Aegyptos. So HI became AI, KU became GU, and PTAH became PTOS. So they changed Hikupatah into Aegyptos. Aegyptos now, the AI became E, the GU became GY, and the PTOS became PT. So the African was Hikupatah, the Greek was Aegyptos, and then the contamination was Egypt.
Right.
So that we don't even know what they called it. We know what they called the capital. We know why they called it the capital, because they were dealing with hydroelectric power by rediverting the waters. These were engineers doing this. But they came from inner Africa. They came from Kush. So what we call the Old Kingdom really is a continuation of the Kushite kingdoms.
Yeah.
But we consider it a whole new world. Why? Because of the Greeks. Because to the Greeks, it was a whole new world.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of their episode, but it was only a continuation of our greatness. So to understand this, I put together a program, and I can get to as share the name.
Okay.
And I don't see that green thing coming.
It should appear on the side.
Yeah, it should, but it's not there.
Tap on your screen, just anywhere randomly, and it.
Oh, there it is. I got it. I got it.
Brothers doing that again. Big up to the chat room. Shout out to everybody tuning in. Please feel free to ask questions throughout, and I will get them out. Shout out to Brother Patah, who's in the chat room, getting better. Hope to hear from you soon. Yes, Brother Kaba.
So with this PowerPoint presentation, what I attempt to do is to show the importance of understanding Kush. When I taught this class in college, they asked me if I would teach a class on Egypt. I was in Black Studies program in a state college. And I told the director it would be difficult to do anything on Egypt if we didn't talk about Kush. You can't understand Kemet if you don't understand Kush. And so what I did was take a quote from a book called Kush, The Jewel of Nubia. And it was written by Sister Miriam Monges. And this quote says that the great civilization of Kemet will remain a mystery. In other words, ancient Egypt will remain a mystery until the people and land of Kush, which is Nubia, today Sudan, Ethiopia, in the ancient world it was Abyssinia, and Puanit, which includes Eritrea and Djibouti and parts of northern Kenya, are geographically and culturally enjoined and rejoined to the people and land of Kemet. She calls this process of separation, Egypt from Africa, the beheading of Africa. And so I begin with that concept for us to understand exactly who these people are in Kemet, who these people are along the Happy Valley. These are the Kushites, the original Africans. This map is called the Peters projection map. This is the map that each of us should have in our homes. This map shows the true size. It's called fidelity, what the Earth really looks like. The Mercator map was developed through mathematics and science by our ancestors. Mercator, merchant. It was done to find our way around the Earth, of which the Europeans would later take. And we still use the Mercator map, but we have now, going into this next age, we now have had satellite pictures of our Earth that now we know exactly what the continents look like and their exact size. Africa is much bigger than it has been told to be. Much longer, more of a landmass. The same with South America. Same with Australia, is much bigger. And Europe is much smaller. And so this map, the Peters projection map, you can Google it, and we should have this available to see the true size. It was developed by a man by the name of Arno Peters. Yeah. Arno. He's a cartographer.
Yeah, I remember there was a bit of controversy around this because they wanted to introduce this back into schools. At one point in time, it was the hot topic. Obviously, it's of its misleading nature, as you're saying, the landmass sizes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can purchase this from Friendship Press.
Okay.
Now, going back to the last week's class and talking about the origins of human beings, I got this book. I found this book like on sale, man. It was like one of these street vendors. And they were selling this book. This is in the German language. But what becomes important for us to understand is that before humans were born, before we were here, there were geological occurrences that created crevices and cracks in the earth. And one of these cracks and crevices created what is called the Rift Valley. And the Rift Valley is located, it starts in Mozambique. And it travels, as you can see right here, this is where it starts in Mozambique. And it literally comes up. It diverts this way, and it comes up this way. It cracks right through all of these countries, goes through the Red Sea, goes under the Red Sea, and it goes into the country we today call Israel. But I always tell people to keep in mind, today it's called Israel, but yesterday it was called Palestine. But don't stop there, because the day before yesterday, before it was called Palestine, it was called Canaan. And Canaan was a black land.
That's all.
And with due respect to all peoples of the earth, the Palestinians are the descendants of the Philistines. And the Philistines were the ones that murdered and caused great mayhem to the black Canaanites. So that cosmic proverb is true. What goes around comes around. Because Israel is doing to the Palestinians what the Palestinians did to the black Canaanites. Absolutely wrong, inhumane, but you shall reap what you sow.
That's it.
So this Rift Valley, in the middle of the Rift Valley is the Nile Valley. In the middle of the Nile Valley is the Nile River. And this was the ancient roadway of the first humans to travel north and travel south. It was like a road that carved its way straight through the eastern part of Africa. But we got to focus right here. Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Congo, and Southern Africa. Because it's in this area that we see the Great Lakes region. And this is where the human family was born. The human family was born in this area. At the foothills of the mountains of the moon. Right here. All humanity comes from here. And there's no way anybody can move away from that concept. Let's take another look at the Peters projection map, but looking at Africa. Because right here is what we're talking about. Right there.
And again, people, remember, after watching this, go back. I urge you, do your own research. It's all well and good watching the videos, listening to the brother present. But again, this isn't about belief or following. This is about you doing your own research and making certain things your own truth. Yeah, finding out your history, personalizing it for yourself. And remember what the brother started off by pointing out. A lot of the history that we've been given is from a European perspective. Yeah, they tell you a lot of history based on their interactions with us, and it starts from that point. But as the brother's showing, it supersedes their timeline. So we have to keep this in mind, yeah, when we're listening to what's being taught here. You know, what supersedes white people, and what is the part of history that they're talking about that directly involves them, hence why they have an opinion on it. Yeah, please remember that point.
And you know, brother, when we realize that peoples of Eurasian descent are no older than 8,000 to 10,000 years old. African people are millions of years old. So here's how I do it with children. I ask them, would you rather have $8,000 or $4 million? Because when you put it on money, people understand that.
They get it real quick.
Eurasians haven't been around long on the planet. They're very young to the planet. And they came into existence by mistake when Africans moved into an area that would be impacted by the Ice Age. And as you so rightly said, brother, I tell people this all the time, don't believe a word I say. I'm not here to make you believe me. This work that I've done and what I'm showing you is simply to make you think. Last week we talked about it. This week I want to show you a couple of maps. I want to do the geography of this so that you can get a sense of what it visually looks like. And I would never do to anybody what was done to everybody. That's why I say don't believe me. I'm not here to control your mind. I'm here simply to extend visuals and ideas and thoughts and writings to you for you to stop and wonder exactly where do I pick this information up and move forward in my life so I can be a better citizen. Because that's the object. That's the African object of life, to become constructive cosmic citizens of the planet and of the cosmos. That's the job.
That's all.
Ain't about how many cars you have or how much money you have or sneakers.
That's it. I mean, again, let me point that out to the people. I mean, this is something that just before you go on, brother, I want you to really hint to the people about the African mind state. It's always practical in nature, but there's always a goal to be better, to be more efficient, in your everyday dealings with your environment and your fellow person or people, should I say, around you. So again, this is the unseen principles that we're talking about. The brother today is touching on the scene, the pathways in which we traveled, the map. We're talking about the dynasties. But again, there's always that unseen principle of how best to achieve what we're trying to do. So never forget that. Brother.
And when you say that, my brother, I think of a sister that once pulled my coat to something. She told me to always know the difference between being effective and being efficient. Because she told me, the way you present information and the way you drop the science is very effective. But the problem is you get into too few people. You ain't efficient. Being effective is doing the right thing. Efficient is doing the thing right. So it's not just about what you do. It's how you do it. And so possessing information means nothing if you can't do something with it. In fact, there's a Moorish proverb that says, once you learned what you set out to learn, what you learned you can discard because it was getting the knowledge, the way you got the knowledge, that was the truest education. And that gets into the brain and how the brain functions. It gets into testing and the way our system is set up for our children, whether you're in kindergarten or college. I used to always tell my students, everybody want to know, well, how can I get a good grade? I said, don't spend your time worrying about getting a good grade. Spend your time being concerned about learning something. Because if you learn something, you'll get a good grade.
That's it, the natural synergy.
It is. It's a very natural thing. But unfortunately, in our colleges, and I can't speak for UK or any other part, I can only speak from my own experience, and I only come from my experience. But there are a lot of courses of study that students take that waste their time.
Yep, worldwide.
It ain't got nothing to do with what they want to be in life. So why do you have to waste your time at such a crucial age? Such a crucial age. Why are you wasting your time studying something that is not going to apply to the ascension of your consciousness? It might be good for somebody else, and that other person should study that. But if you know what you want to do, see, that's why, we get ourselves caught up in the educational system and we play the game, which I understand. But the thing is that testing never really tests your greatest knowledge and wisdom. It doesn't test your intelligence. There's two ways you can pass a standardized test, the kind of test that has a paragraph with 4 choices. You can pass the test if you know all the right answers, and you can pass the test if you know all the wrong answers. But you don't have to know the right answer to pass a test. Every test is a reading test. And chances are that when you take that multiple choice test, chances are there's going to be 2 answers that's going to be absolutely incorrect, and you know it for sure. And then there are 2 answers, maybe A and C. One of them is the right answer, but the other one is real close, and it can fool you. All you got to do is go back into the paragraph and read it. And in the paragraph, in the question, you'll find the answer. That's how you pass tests. It ain't got nothing to do with your intelligence. I do very good on tests. I do excellent on tests, but I have never been the smartest person in the class. In all my career, I've never been the smartest person in the class as it relates to the class work. But when it comes to standardized tests, I blow everybody out the room.
You work them odds.
There's something about standardized tests that's very attractive to me. I've never gotten below a 91 on any standardized test I ever took. And there are some tests I took, I didn't even know what the subject matter was. I remember when my daughter, who is a social worker, was preparing to take the test for one of her licenses to get her social worker's license here in the United States. And she and I studied for it together. And she used to read the questions to me. And I got all of them right. But I never had a course on social work. See, what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to be intelligent to pass these standardized tests. That's what I'm trying to say. When I say you don't have to be intelligent, I mean these tests are a game.
They're not testing your critical thinking.
No, they can't. There's no way you choosing out of 4 an answer that's going to percolate your critical thinking skills. You read the question, you answer it. It only asks you to know and to understand. It don't ask you to apply, analyze, synthesize, or evaluate. And these are the things that we have to get to our children, because what I used to do with my children is I used to teach them how to take these tests, and then I used to teach them culture. And everybody wondered how the children in my class did so well. And the reason why they did so well is that I taught them how to take a test. It's a very straightforward process. It's a game. But because we're not exposed to this, sometimes we think other things.
Well, I think as well, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I think the way the European mind works, it separates everything into a lot of layers. And in the education system, they don't always teach that unification. You know, you can go away and study many different subject matters, you know, psychology, chemistry, biology, history, you know, but these are all connected subjects. And if they taught you that in the instant, I think that would, again, stop there being so many pointless courses, because you would quickly see the pathway in which you need to learn. So again, that's what's missing. I think that's the problem, where you have so many scholars today in different subject matters, but none of them are really unifying the schools of thought to understand the complete mosaic that lies before us. Yeah, and I think that is the major difference with, when I listen to people like Brother Oyibo, and he talks about his grand unified theorem. And again, just understanding those subject matters all being connected. And if you use all of them as a one hand, you get a much greater, deeper understanding of whatever the subject matter is, person, place, thing. Yeah, so I think that is the key element. I think the linchpin that's missing from Western education, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, to support what you're saying, brother, is a number of years back, I went to a spiritual retreat, and there was an elder sister from Senegal. Her name was Madame Fatou Sek. And we went down into the Gullah Islands here in the United States. And there were African Americans, indigenous Americans, and there were Africans from the continent and Caribbean. We all just came together. But before we had this retreat, many of the professionals went to Senegal to meet with Madame Fatou Sek and those that would be coming to this retreat. And they had like a little conference there in Senegal in her community, in her village. And they asked Madame Fatou Sek, who was the elder queen mother of the community, a lot of questions. And at the end, she said, I'd like to ask you some questions. And she said, when people where you're from have problems of the mind, who do they go to? And the psychologists and the psychiatrists that were there, these were all Black people, psychiatrists and psychologists and social workers said, well, they come to us because we study the mind. She said, okay. She said, when people are physically sick, when there's something wrong with their body, who do the people go to? And the doctors, internists or surgeons, people who are medical doctors said, well, they come to us because we are the medical doctors that cure the body's ills. She said, okay. And she said, when somebody has a spiritual problem, who do they go to? And the ministers and the imams and the spiritual leaders said, well, they come to us because I am Christian, I am Muslim, I am Buddhist. And then they said, why do you ask? And Madame Fatou Sek said, when people get sick in my community, they come to me because I'm a healer. And I heal their mind, their body, and their spirit. So that story comes when you talk about how we've dissected all these different categories and all these specialists in these areas where when you bring it all together, a real medical doctor should also be a healer that can heal your mind and your spirit. A spiritualist should be able to heal your body and your mind. Not as a surgeon, but someone who can help your spirit become in tune. Your body and your mind will follow. And the same is true for someone who is a psychologist, should also be able to help your spirit and your body. Because first of all, psyche comes from saku. Psychology is not the study of the mind. Psychology is the study of the soul. Saku. And so when you're having what you think is a mental issue, that's a problem with your soul. You have to heal your soul. And as you look around the world today, we need some soulful healing out here now. Because we've moved away from the deepest African traditions of our people. And when you go into Africa and you go into places that are very traditional in nature and return back to nature, everything is fine. They ain't have nowhere near the problems we have out here. We think we got all this. And you go to some of the traditional communities that's not impacted by some of the nonsense that we have to go through here in the so-called advanced world. What you'll find is the advanced world many times are the very communities we call primitive.
Definitely.
Or who some people would like to call shitholes. It's all according to your perspective. Because it's in those very countries that the people are the greatest and the kindest and willing to share everything that they have. And yet when you look at the people who are calling all these horrific names to our people, they really are the ones with the problems. Now, this map is very important because this is the one that I want to really focus on as it relates to understanding the history. And then what I'd like to do is unshare the screen and we can have a conversation about some of the things that we're going to talk about, because we're going to take it to the next level during our next class, our next workshop. This comes from Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. And this is looking at the movement of the ancient African people.
Right.
Here is, remember we spoke about the Rift Valley. The Rift Valley, in the middle is the Nile Valley, or the Happy Valley. In the middle of the Happy Valley is the Nile River, or the Happy River. Over time, over millions of years, as Africans developed and became technologically advanced, they began to migrate west, south, and north. And this basically is what it looks like. Now, keep in mind, here's where you have these countries of West Africa, and they're going to come up and they're going to come across. But what I want you to realize is the fact that I want to share the screen again because I want to show you something else.
When you're ready, it's still locked on you. Just go back to your screen share.
Okay, I want to go back to, can you see that map?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, good. Because what many of us don't realize is that in the ancient world, the maps, the rivers in Africa were connected. So when I showed you that last map with the movement of Africans across the African continent, they were traveling by river systems. You can see the Happy or the Nile with all of its tributaries. The Nile River may be going one way, but there were little tributaries and streams that go off. So that you can see that down here in the south, you can't see it here, but down south, there's the Limpopo River. The Limpopo River was connected to the Nile River. It was connected to the Congo River. The Congo River was connected to the Niger River. The Niger River was connected to the Senegal River. Down here also you have another river down south called the Orange River. And all of these rivers were connected. And all this area up here prior to 5000 BC, this was green. This was all vegetation up here. And during this time of vegetation, there was a lot of trade going on amongst Africans for thousands of years. They were trading. So not only did the peoples of the Nile go west, but the people from the west came back to the Nile River. There was an interrelationship with merchandise and language and traditions. But the point that I want to make is this, and then we're going to round this particular class down just to talk to you about up here in the Atlas River, up around Algeria. You had a river called the Taman Rasset River. And this Taman Rasset River came down and emptied itself into the ocean down here. We'll get deeper into it next class, but this is the point that I want to make for this class. All in this area, there was a lively trade amongst the African people. All in this area here. Tell me this, because and it's good that I'm talking to you. Last year sometime, they spoke about a hurricane that came across Europe, and I think it came across UK. And they said that it was orange. The clouds that came across Europe were orange. And what it was the sand of the Sahara that got caught up in the hurricane off the west coast of Africa. And instead of getting on the river bed or the ocean current that would bring it to the United States, it brought it up into Europe. And the clouds actually contained sand. I make that point for this reason. At some point in time, when this was vegetation and when this was lively trade going on, it was very wet. In fact, it was called the African wet season because everything was growing out of the water and out of the heat, all the foods. But then about 5000 BC, something came that was called the African arid season. And what began to happen was the drying up of the land in this area. And the winds would carry the dunes or the sand from east to west. And this is what created the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert started to become a desert, or I should say this green area became the Sahara Desert about 5000 BC. But prior to that, there was a whole bunch of people lived up in this area here. But as the desert began to encroach on the land, and this river, the Taman Rasset River, began to dry. And by the way, they have seen this river under the Sahara Desert. They have found alligator bones, fish bones, plants, fish under the Sahara Desert. This has been seen by satellites in space. It's under the Sahara. There's still this river under the Sahara, but the sands covered it up. And when that happened, the African people that were living in the northern part of this area, they moved north. The people who were living south of this area moved south. And in this area that we today call Mauritania, southern Mauritania, there existed over 400 cities starting about 3000 BC. 400 cities. And in time, these cities became 4 provinces: Dar Tichet, Dar Walata, Dar Tanjin. And these provinces joined together, and by 300 BC, they became what we call Ouagadougou. And that's the birth of Ghana. But here in this area, Ouagadougou just didn't appear out of nowhere. These were people that existed and were doing great things for thousands of years. But because of the arid season that dried up the Tamanrasset River, put it underground, Africans moved north and they moved south. And as they moved south, they developed over 400 settlements, little cities. Dar Tichet and Dar Walata are the 2 most popular. We'll talk about that next week, or the next class in 2 weeks. So when you're looking for where did Ghana, Mali, and Songhai come from, they came from here. They didn't appear overnight. That's episodic. Holistic, you have to follow what was going on in this area. And you can see all these rivers, these beautiful, phenomenal rivers are connected. In the ancient world, you could get all around Africa just getting from one river to another. So it becomes important as we begin to look at this information and begin to understand what our true history is, that we understand that we must look at ourselves from a holistic perspective. We have to look at ourselves from a whole people and not from the shattered or fractured episodes of our existence. Because we're the only people that have been around from the very beginning. And we probably the only people going to be around at the end.
Most definitely.
So we'll always be here.
Time on a circular level at all times. People, big up everybody in the chat room. Shout out to Sci-Fi doing her thing. Again, if you
how do I stop screen sharing, brother? Can you see me?
Yeah, you're back. You're back, bro.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. Again, everybody, please throw some likes up there. Share the video out. Our brother's been going in on our history. Again, for those who don't know, the history of ancient West Africa is the title of the show today. It's a continuation from our discussion last time, 2 weeks ago when the brother was on. And yeah, again, we're dealing with the seen and the unseen. And that's what I want to touch on now that we're in discussion mode, brother. You know, I want to deal with scholarship because, again, we've dealt with you showing history, you know, showing what's really good, giving people references to go back on. But I want to deal with what I call soulless scholarship. Yeah, where you know facts, but again, you don't look at that organic nature of what you're learning. You don't take the principles. And again, before the show started, me and you were talking about the show you did the other day on Philip Matthews' Shop Metaphysics channel, YouTube channel. Anybody who doesn't know, go there, subscribe. There are some really good conversations over there that I hope one day I can be a part of because I was really enjoying listening to it. But I want you to just explain to the people about the metaphysics side, because again, I know that side and principles and this unseen nature is what makes people very uncomfortable when examining our ancestors and our history, and understanding the unbroken bond that goes between that seen and unseen. So, and I found it interesting how you explain metaphysics. So just for the benefit of my audience, just if you can remember, just re-explain how you see metaphysics or how our ancestors used it.
To our ancestors, going back, in fact, if you think of an infant being born, in many ways, you can look at the human family the same way. That when an infant is born, it comes out, and as it moves through its first hours, its first days, its first weeks, it's looking all around. The baby is looking to see who or what they see frequently, which is a lot of times is mommy, daddy, sister, brother, family. A room that they may be in. So they're trying to make sense of the world that they're perceiving. And that's what the earliest humans did. And nature became our first teacher. Nature taught us everything that we need to know. And nature was everything that we need to know. And so when you're dealing with this concept of metaphysics, you have the meta, the myth, the meta, which is what is behind the physics. What is physics is the physical. Metaphysics is what is behind the physics, the physical that you don't see, but it's there. Our ancestors in the Shabaka stone, which is a carved writing of the creation of the universe, calls this seen and unseen world. The seen is called Amenet, Amenet. The unseen world is called Amen, the hidden, Amen. And so Amen and Amenet is the hidden and the revealed. Spirituality is unseen science, and science is seen spirituality. You know, when I go and speak in church, man, sometimes I go speak in church, and if things are kind of quiet and I want to start some stuff up, I say, I don't believe in God. You know what happens. I said, I don't have any faith in God. But before you'll get up and leave, I know God. I don't have faith. You can lose faith and you can stop believing. But when you know the Creator, you can never unknow it. You can deny or ignore, but you can't deny that you know. And my bottom line is each and every one of us is the Creator having a human experience. So I'm not looking for a creator out there. You know, like when you see somebody on the award show and they win an award and they say, I want to thank God for winning this. No, God didn't help you win that award. It was the God in you that helped you become such a great performer that you won the award. You won the award. The God in you won the award. Because that would not be very nice to think that one person out of 5, God is going to favor them.
Yeah.
That's not a fair God.
That's it.
Maybe the God in you didn't work as hard as it should have done in order to win that award. Or maybe somebody cheated, that's the other way. But when I watch people thanking God for all the things, all the blessings, when people say grace at a table and thank God for providing them food. Listen, when my family and I sat down to eat, God didn't put that food on the table. I did. I worked hard. But it was the God in me. I'm not being sacrilegious, and I'm not being disrespectful. If anything, I'm being respectful to the God within.
That's all.
They got a hustle out here. That they got us chasing this God out here so they can make money. So that the metaphysics of what we're talking about is that sacred science. It is that phenomenal Ma'atian balance of the seen and the unseen, where African people never questioned if there was a creator. They knew there was a creator. I know there's a creator. I watched the creator brush his teeth this morning. I watched the creator wash his face. Because I am the creator. You are your creator. And so once we get to that point of understanding metaphysics from an African perspective, where our ancestors were able to create these phenomenal advanced civilizations, Wakanda isn't just in Black Panther movie. We've had Wakandas before. In fact, we had a Wakanda when we were on the plantation. That was Wakanda. That was quite a technological advanced society. We had a Wakanda in the Caribbean, on the plantations of the Caribbean. And right now in UK, black ice is a Wakanda. What we're doing right now is a Wakanda. So I tell people, enjoy Black Panther, but don't think it's way out there that you think that that's something that we have yet to become. We've been that before. All we got to do is remember in order for us to do it again.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And again, it's interesting when you're talking about the religious aspect of redirecting energies, as you said, when you're calling that God that they're subscribing to, that outward imagery or that outward thought pattern, all you're doing is misdirecting the energies that you should be using to replenish yourself in your everyday activities. So as you said, by recognizing the God in you and understanding your position in nature, you definitely recharge yourself constantly in the works that you're trying to achieve, which again I think is key in this time of pressure for Black people. It's even more important to understand that factor, and again take those energy bursts when needed in our everyday lives and activities. Because again, even with the studying, if you don't understand this position, again, if you're a soulless scholar where you're just studying, after a while you can lose your zest for even studying, because you're now not extrapolating any energy from it. Because every time there's that point where you're supposed to now put the book down, think about those principles, recharge your batteries from that wisdom, now that application of that knowledge, it's missing. So you lose a whole chunk of enthusiasm, of energy, and future wisdoms that you could have drawn from the very information that you're trying to learn from. So I really think that's important. And again, that's why I needed you, and I probably will continue to ask you on every show, no matter what we talk about, to re-go over this position on the metaphysics, the importance of it, and always recognizing the principles that drove our people and our ancestors in whatever pursuit they did. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of what you're saying, brother, think about somebody that helps you achieve great things. and you're at the point where you're about to receive the benefits for all that you've done. And then you turn around and thank someone else that had nothing to do with you getting what you got. How is that other person going to feel? You say, but I'm the one that helped you get this. But you're going to thank them? Yeah. But I'm the one that made it possible. On a spiritual level, that's what we're talking about. When you have achieved great things, and it's the creator within you, the God within you, that invigorated and energized you to be able to achieve that greatness. And then at the end, you're going to thank somebody that's out there somewhere that you ain't never seen. You don't even know exists. Yet every day that you got up to do your job, you know that person inside of you that made that job happen. They're going to say, what about me? And eventually they're going to say, well, since you want to give that person all the credit, then let them help you. And then your spirit within is going to break down. And so we have to understand the fundamental spiritual nature of our African tradition, understanding that each and every one of us was the creator having a human experience. It's a beautiful spiritual system. And it's a spiritual system that you control. You don't have to worry about no minister, no religious leader. Nobody can shine your God, because only you can shine your God. And your God will start to love you in ways that will surprise you, will take you places that you never realized that you could go, make you achieve things that you never thought were possible, because your God will appreciate your appreciation of your God. We have to get there, brother. This is where we were. This is what built the pyramids and the temples. This is what built the structures of Africa. This is what created strong dynasties and families, created strong warriors to protect that nation, to not let anyone in. And everywhere that I study our history, whether it's in Egypt or in Kush or on the plantation or during the civil rights movement or right now, before they ever conquer us, they always come in on us fighting amongst ourselves. We have to stop fighting amongst ourselves.
Most definitely.
We have to understand the ties that bind us. I have to look into this computer and I have to see you as my brother. I have to see the tie that binds us together as a people. I have to understand that if you do well, I do well. And if I do well, you do well. And my job is not to try to do better. As you said, my job is not to compete with another person. My job is to compete with me. So that the person that I am today is better than the person that I was yesterday. And I pray and invoke the power to become a better person tomorrow than I was today. So it is the shining of the spirit within that counts. And this is what we have to start to look at as a people. And when we do that, we guaranteed success. Success is ours. But first, we got to work on ourselves. Before I can unite with anybody else, I got to unite with myself.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Facts. Chat room knows what time it is. Yeah, they're enjoying this build. Again, this is part 2. So I urge people, go back, watch the first part where our brother came on and spoke with us. And just before you leave, quick note that I do want you to just speak on quickly before we wrap this up. As you know, we have our brother and your brother, Patar Seeker, joining us on shows. He did a show already just before you came on. And again, we were talking about him just before. Shout out to Brother Patar because he's not feeling too well, so he may not be on this week. But we'll see him soon, and hopefully I'll see him out there in New York when I get there. But yeah, in case people don't realize that show, which I want anybody who hasn't seen to go back and watch, which is about immortality and time and what the brother's talking about. It is an actual connective show to this one and to what we're talking about here. So again, just for the people who don't know, who may look at it as a separate entity, who may not know your connection, just speak on that and speak about Brother Patar quickly and your connection and why you think his show and what he talks about with his calendar is important.
Well, the idea of my brother, Siba Patar, Sika Asar, the work that he's doing as it relates to time. Time. As a people, we have to understand what time it is. And his brother, Siba Patar, speaks of the Gregorian calendar developed on what we are now dealing with time. This is not what time we're in. There are multiple calendars that our ancestors had, whether it was an agricultural calendar, a cosmic calendar, a star calendar. And what Brother Patar is doing, for those who will hear, is he is our cosmic clock. He is telling us what time it is. He is developing a way for us to understand what we can do in our life when we realize the immortality of time. Time is immortal. When we went to bed last night, we returned back into a cosmic reality. The moment we woke up, we started this day's time. When we went to bed, we returned back to the cosmos, and this time ended. 2018, we don't know what that is. What's 2018? That deals with a constellation that nobody even wants to admit to. They're still caught up with the concept of a Jesus the Christ being born. They're not even realizing the constellational or the cosmic relationship of that date. Our ancestors had a lot of dates. There were times that they had one calendar that specifically dealt with how long the particular Neset Biti had ruled. Ramoses, 4 years after Ramoses. That was another calendar. We all have different calendars. We have calendar when we were in school. Then we have a calendar when we started working. Then we have a calendar when we retired. So there are all different types of time calendars. But the most important thing that Brother Patar shows us is the reality of the time that we're living in and what we can do within this time to make a difference. Because you can't do nothing if you don't know what time it is.
That's right.
In fact, you don't even know what to do if you don't know what time it is. And then when you get the space continuum in place, and you get the time and space, time is history, space is geography. When you get those two pieces in place, then you can then bring them together to a space-time continuum where neither time nor space exists, that you have always been around, you're around now, and you will always be around. That's what our ancestors were working towards. And that this does. So I'm encouraging us, get that calendar. And after you get that calendar, buy more calendars and share with people. And go to Brother Patar in his class at revshock@gmail.com. Join the Kemetic Wisdom School. Study the work that he's doing. Study the work that I'm doing. Because the brother's dropping some knowledge and wisdom when I went to Boston, because I completed a documentary on El Haj Malik El Shabazz, and I went to Boston and I called my brother up, and Brother Patah and Uncle Tehudi came and met us and brought us where we needed to go. And right there, he signed a calendar for me, a calendar for my wife, a calendar for my son. So I've got next year's calendar. He's going to be doing a series of programs soon in July that is going to introduce this next year of July 25th.
Okay.
It's powerful.
Trust me.
The information family is here. We got our scholars, we got our Sebas, we got our adepts, they're here. But it's up to us to utilize their wisdom and knowledge in our daily lives in order for us to move forward. So when Brother Seba Patah is on your program, I tell people, take heed. Take heed to what the brother's saying. Understand what he's attempting to do. He's doing this through the purity of a Kemetic legacy. He's been doing this for years. He's been in the temple for years, decades, since he was young. Brother is a scholar. And one of the most challenging things for us to be able to embrace and understand, he has the ability to help us do that. And that's the concept of time. And that Rosorian calendar breaks it all down for us to understand it.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, once again, I want to thank the chat room and big up everybody who's been watching, who's been tuning in, and been supporting the Black Eyes TV movement. We're definitely striving to bring more of our elders on and impart that real knowledge, as well as continue to have our discussion groups, continue to have a few debates, but most definitely we want to encourage our elders on. I'm hoping to get Mfadishi and a few other people to come on. I definitely want to ask Brother Kaba to reach out to Philip Matthews, because I would love to speak with him, maybe have him on the show. And eventually you, Patah, Philip Matthews, maybe engaging in a conversation. Again, the sister as well that you was trying to get on to the to Philip Matthews show. What's her? Yes. Remind me of her name again.
Dr. Nteri Nelson.
That's right. That's right.
Nteri. She has a metaphysical school in Boston. I'm telling you, things are happening in Boston between Seba Patah and Seba Nteri. There's a lot of great things happening in the land of Malcolm X. And speaking of spirituality, I invite the community to download my 5-day e-course free and my study guide.
Okay.
At kabakamene.com, www.kabakamene.com, www.kabakamene.com. It's on my next book that I'm writing right now, titled Spirituality Before Religions, Spiritual Before Ritual. And so I encourage you to come on, and I thank the community for their support. I am particularly enthused and very proud to be on Black Ice, to be able to reach out to my family in UK and around the world that watch the Black Ice TV. Because family, we have to bring these ties that bind us together as a people. Water don't separate us. The fact that you're UK and I'm US don't separate us. Whether you're in the Caribbean, it don't separate us. Wherever you are in the world. Marcus Garvey said, Africa for Africans at home and abroad. And he just wasn't talking about the physicalness of it. He was talking about the metaphysics of it. Africa, at home and abroad. We are all part of this grand universe. We are the masterpiece of the universe. We are the thought of the Creator who is now manifesting themselves. And although things look challenging, Don't worry if they say have atomic energy, because none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We have to fulfill the book. Last song on his last album. And all Bob Marley asked us is, won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? And that's what we're doing. Knowledge are these songs of freedom to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, because none but ourselves can free our mind. Let's get this done, family, not just for us and for our community, but for our children and the children that are yet to be born. Let them be born into the world that we envision. But first, we must live that world. Live your vision. Bob Marley say, make your dream your reality.
That's all. Couldn't have put it better. A great way to end the show. Again, people, support Black Eyes TV, support Black media. I cannot stress that enough. And to my fellow Black media outlets, Black Magic, Black News, Content Over Everything, Titans TV, Bubba TV, HMP TV, we need to work together. We need to have a sustained, unified effort to bring this information to the people. And we got to work together, yeah, and create a real trade line of information that is easily accessed by the people, no matter your demographic, no matter where you are, no matter what time frame you seem to have free. Yeah, the information should always be readily available, and us as the media outlets should be working tirelessly to bring that information in the best, most constructive way. Yeah, and again, don't be a soulless scholar. Forget that. Yeah, if you're reading something, ask yourself, why am I reading this? What you know, if what should I be getting at this? What's the conclusion? Yeah, I urge my people then, do not be a heartless scholar. Shout out to the chat room again, um, for supporting, for participating. Um, big up to Bigger who just came in. Gang, gang, gang. Listen, I need to speak to Raspect. Let me just put that message out there quickly. Somebody get Raspect, get him to call me. Yeah, much appreciated. Again, look out for our brother Kaba, who should be back in 2 weeks' time. All goes well, and we'll continue the discussion. Again, people, thank you for supporting Black Eyes TV. If you have any comments or suggestions for shows, hit me up on Instagram, Black Eyes TV7, or hit me up at my email, which is blackeyes tv7@gmail.com. Feel free anytime, or get me on Messenger, Black Eyes TV Richie. Yeah, hit me up, phone me, send me a message, whatever. Yeah, I'm happy and willing to take on suggestions. Yeah, but look out for future shows. Shout out to brother Patar. Get well soon. Hopefully, we'll have him on soon. If all goes well again, family, you will see me in New York side doing my thing at the Sun Air TV Awards, getting some interviews in with some of the elders, some of the participants, some of the winners. Yeah, so look out for that. Again, thank you, brother Kaba, and I want to say peace to everybody. Take care of
Peace,
yourselves.
Hotep.
Hotep.